Liège-Bastogne-Liège Femmes, 153 kilometers from Bastogne to Liège. The entire final of this race is the same as the men's, pretty much from the Côte de Mont-le-Soy, soit Côte de Vannes. The last, all the important climbs in the last 100 Ks are in this race, including, of course, the Côte de la Redoute, 1500 meters, 9%, Côte de Forges, 1200 meters, 7.6%, and the Côte de la Roche, or Faucon, 1200 meters, 11%. And in the women's race, never forget Boncel, which is a little kicker after Rochefoucauld, and we have seen the race and riders made or broken on that climb. But yeah, anything before the race, Benji?
Well, before the race, not necessarily. We have some, like, Anna van der Breggen didn't start Flèche Wallonne, is starting this race, could be a factor. She's obviously been a fantastic rider in the past, so that is something there, but not necessarily like any major news in terms of people that are injured or something. Like Longo Borghini has been back. We've seen her do well at Flèche Wallonne, so I'm curious to see what she could do at this LBL, for example. When it comes to voting, is she going to step up and take her first one-day race proper victory, I would say, this season? That's also potentially in the cards for this. So there's plenty of like arguments here. Kopecky was not good at Flèche Wallonne. Could she do it on LBL, which is a harder hill stage? Which that is also a question mark when it comes to SD Works then. Lots of questions to be answered in this race, and they were answered in the end. But before we get to answering those questions, though, this race did not have amazing coverage. We didn't have coverage from like 120 kilometers out like we have in the men's race, for example, sadly, because turns out a lot of stuff happened off camera. I don't know what exactly happened, but I've seen some pro cycling stats ticker things pop up where this rider was attacking, this rider was attacking. Do you have any clue what happened before the broadcast started?
I got no idea, and it makes it really hard to analyze this race. And of the two races today, this race was better. It was clearly the better race, and I think from before Redoute as well. I mean, you could see on PCS Live stats that the break had 3 minutes, and then 5Ks later it's got 1 minute. That means something's happening. Then it's shut on Stocku, whatever it's called. And then there's riders jumping from UAE, from Visma, from whoever. And maybe FDJ were controlling it. I guess FDJ, it's really hard to, like, because then you tune in and the coverage starts and you're like, oh, Juliette Lebou's dropping a bit early. That's not very good. Like, but what if for the last 45Ks she'd been covering every move? I don't know.
Yeah, and maybe we'll never know. We might hear some anecdotes from riders, but at the end of the day, what is shown on camera is most likely what stays in people's heads. And the coverage kind of just started before Côte de la Redoute, which is the third last climb technically on the route. Côte de Forges is not necessarily often used for attack. So let's say the 2.5th last climb is how I'd categorize La Redoute on this route. And at that moment in the race, we've had some anticipations for La Redoute because, let's be honest about it, La Redoute, potentially something will happen there. Definitely the tempo will go up with the favorite. So if you can get ahead of that, you will definitely not get dropped on the climb. And that's exactly what the scenario was for Maïva Squibon. We've seen this rider for Arkea last year, now riding for UAE Team ADQ. And I actually really like her as a rider, like very willing to attack, willing to anticipate, stuff like that. And it's like, is it weird to say that she's a pre-Kerbao? Like the previous step of Cédric?
Yes. Like in the Tour de France last year, she anticipated it on a good moment, maybe on the stage Shakira won, and she like ended up finishing ahead of the GC group. So she knows when to move, and she's also, maybe that was an insight into Longo Borghini not on her best day, because we get to Redoute, and I was thinking Redoute has been very selective in previous years. Like Rigolini's reduced the group to a very small number before. I mean, I was thinking, what if FDJ put on the pace here? If you're any team with a good depth of number of riders, you might want to anticipate a Redoute. But it didn't. It either couldn't or didn't happen. We don't know. But Squibon managed to do it. Cavallard, who also was trying to anticipate in those breakaways last year in the Tour, was caught. And then on Redoute, I can't even remember who was pacing. SD Works?
Into the climb, like you say, into the climb was SD Works, and a Canyon SRAM rider next to it. Might have already been Nivia Doma near the front. I'm not 100% certain. And then we saw the early droppings. We saw Utrup Ludwig dropping from Canyon Stram. We saw on the other side of the road, like you mentioned. Well, not yet, like you mentioned, but first, Longoborghini dropping. And that's one of those things where Longoborghini should not be dropping on La Redoute, even if the race had opened up with 80 kilometers to go, with 90 kilometers to go. So with her, that excuse isn't as fitting as with Labou. So I'm wondering, is Longoborghini still struggling when it comes to her concussion? You'd argue no, because she was good at Flèche Wallonne. So I don't know what's up with Longoborghini today. She doesn't seem to be at her best in this race. Otherwise, she wouldn't be dropping early on La Redoute. I'm telling you, it wasn't even in the second half of the climb. So it's a bit of a shame to see. Let's hope she finds better grounds in her upcoming races. Now, then after SD Works stops at the front, we see Shabby from FDJ Suez and Kopecky kind of half-wheeling each other at the front, slowly grinding up the tempo towards the top of this climb. And this does thin out the group quite a lot. And then is when we see Juliette Labou dropping. And even at that point, like you say, it's on paper too early in the race for Labou to drop, but we don't know what happened before the broadcast started. So there's so many question marks. Did she spend energy before? Did she not? Did she have a bad day? Everything is possible. And there's really no attacks on this climb. Squibon just gets caught from that anticipation move. And over the top, we see Pieterse rolling over the top with the group and her wheel. And I'm counting the amount of riders. I'm like, maybe 15 riders maximum. But I was shocked to see. And now I'm flying the Belgian flag, buddy. I'm flying the Belgian flag. Lore de Schepper of AG Insurance, 19 years old in the group. I'm sorry, but that's great. She drops on the flat later, but that's just a detail.
Yeah, and it's a really hard race. I think they raced it pretty hard from far out, not just on Redoute. And yeah, it was, see Bunel losing touch, another young rider, and then right when it seemed like Kopecky wanted a steady tempo, and at the end, Pieterse looked the freshest. So I was already thinking Phoenix de Koning looking good. They got Royakkers, they got Pieterse. Pieterse's got a sprint, she got the punch. Royakkers can't descend too well, but she can go long.
Castellane too. I think there were 3.
Yep, there were probably 3. So they were looking really, really good. And you haven't discussed this phase, Benji, before Côte de Forges? No. So this is the phase where if you got numbers, you really want to get ahead. If you are worried about a bomber from the top favourites on Rochefoucauld, which is probably everybody outside of
the ones that can give it.
Demi and Puck, really? I mean, even Kopecky would, and so SD Works jump. And it's Anna van der Breggen, actually, who jumps ahead. And there were quite a few moves. Maybe Cedrine Kerbel was first. I can't remember who exactly was first. But
Royakkers, I think Royakkers was the first one.
Really smart.
That's like the team that you wouldn't expect to do it because they have Pieterse. But then the reason is they have the numbers. You mentioned that there. So that was Royakkers first. Then I think they went into a small descent. Lippert tried to bridge but got caught. And that's what Van der Breggen and Kerbel tried to bridge. But what was the team pacing behind?
First it was FDJ, then it was Movistar. FDJ looked like they were dead in the water, then they came back really strong. Shabby did a lead out on Côte de Forges when it looked like Van der Breggen's group was going away, and then she peeled off. Ferrand-Prévot attacked over the top, didn't close it, and I was like, oh, this gap is looking very good for the breakaway. Who's going to close it? Movistar comes screaming back. So Movistar solved this whole issue. Lippert, and credits to her, Lippert was probably leader of this race, or equal with Reusser at the start of today.
Yeah.
She got dropped earlier than Reusser, and so she came back and she just paced full gas on the descent into Rochefoucauld, and as well as Meyering, I think. And so Movistar really shut this whole breakaway down. Royakkers wasn't pulling. She was sitting on the breakaway. Van der Breggen was doing a lot, Kerbel doing a lot, and who else was in there? One other.
So Royakkers, Van der Breggen, Kerbel, and I don't remember. Did we just cut someone out of existence? Niedermayer.
Canyon Schramm had a rider there. Niedermayer. And so Movistar, impressive job. They get to Rochefoucauld, and Royakkers I thought was going to solo, and I was like, I'd already called. I was like, Royakkers going to win because she's a good climber. She sat on, and now she's launched 20 seconds ahead of the group behind her. FDJ start pacing behind, and this is what's really strange to me. Demi Vollering, I think, has the same trainer as Almeida. So was it Shabby or somebody starts absolutely drilling it at the bottom? Like they're screaming back to Van der Breggen and Cedrine's gone clear. Actually, very impressive performance from her. The group's 5 riders already. Ferron Prevot dropped. Half the other riders dropped. It's literally just Kopecky, Peterson, Vollering, and Shabby. The rest are irrelevant. And even Nivea Doma, Master Puncheurs dropped. And Demi tells Shabby to stop. She says, you're going too hard. And which is, I sort of get it. I was like, oh, Demi's fucked. She's gone. She's been riding a bit weird all day. Fair enough. You know, it was just too hard. It is what it is. Then, I don't know who starts. Then Royak, as a satellite rider, starts pacing for Peterson, launching it. Demi slots in. Then Demi goes to the front at the end of Rochefoucauld and just full gas paces and completely obliterate. Like, Kopecky didn't get dropped, but in spirit, she did. Like, Kopecky had to go so deep on Rochefoucauld following Vollering that she was finished. And even Peterson was struggling on the wheel. So that's the Almeida thing. I was like, because it's weird. Yep. Previously, Benji, Demi seems to not have the snap of previous years.
I agree. And also next to the snap, not necessarily existing, she's closer to the rest in these races. But also, she didn't win the Hill Classics last year either. It was 2 years ago that she dominated them. Up to this point last season, she had 0 victories. And we'll get back to that after the race, because I do want to discuss Demi Vollering and whether we're worried about her and so forth, maybe at the end of this podcast, depending on whether she can win LBL or not. I guess you're about to find out if you didn't watch the race. But you said it. Lots of stuff happened. Front group fell apart, Kerbal, etc. All that stuff is happening. But you mentioned it earlier. Rochefoucauld is not the last climb. There's this extended section that is called Boncel, small downhill before it, and that Boncel can really do something. But that small descent segment in between, that's also very likable for certain riders, I would say. And if I look at the scenario after Rochefoucauld, you've got Vollering, you've got Kopecky, Kerbal has been caught, you've got Peterson as well. And I'm looking at this group and I'm like, okay, my pick, Cedrine Kerbal, this is your moment. She goes to the front. She attacks. I would say attack. It looked like an attack.
Yeah.
Kopecky looked like she was closing, but then it looked like she wasn't closing. Is that because she didn't want to close it with Vollering in her wheel, or are we inventing a rivalry here?
I think she was just cooked. But the
fair.
problem was she made as if she was going to close it and then just let the gap out, and then the others didn't want to close it. So, yeah, Kerbal, her timing in both her anticipations today were incredible. She really read the race very well, and of course she was very, very strong. But what's crazy now, in Boncel, a lot can change, like Benji said. Voss has been there and then completely cracked and fallen through 4 groups. And that's almost what happens to Kopecky today. Kopecky fully implodes. She's got multiple riders from Group 2 coming back going past her. We see Kim Lacourt bridging from... There was a larger group of like 10 riders with like Ferron Prevot, Nivea Doma. Lacourt full Roglic teleports to Peterson and Vollering and gets onto their wheel at the end of... Not even at the end, at the halfway through Boncel. It's like, what the fuck? And masterful stroke. Kopecky's gone. And then I was like, now Kopecky's gone. Peterson and Vollering, they're going to relay full behind Cedric, and they have to chase Kerbal. And so that really, Kopecky being dropped, Kerbal being up the road, changed this race a lot. And in the end, those two take a huge gap, or those 3 rather. It turns into 30 seconds at the end of Boncel over Marlon Reusser, and then it's daylight to their next group. Reusser's caught up with them, and then they're chasing Kerbal. And so they all work. They all trust their sprint. They've got no teammates of real note behind who can get a result. And so they slowly reel in Cedrine Kerbal, and I was like, this is perfect for Kim Lacourt.
Yeah.
They know she's good by now, but she's still underrated. Though the other 2 also have no teammates to play with behind. They've had to just close Kerbal, so there's not as much space to play. Kerbal's also tired because maybe she'd gone a late flyer. and they all relay, the four of them. There's a few times when people aren't relaying, but they don't commit to it. It takes like literally one bit of abuse and they start relaying again.
I think that's a problem. Cédrine, like, obviously I was biased here. I wanted Cédrine to win because I picked her. And also, while I selflessly would find it awesome for Kim LeCour-Pinard to win from this situation, you picked her. So I'm like, meh, not sure I want you to win either, you know? but when it comes to this, like, abuse versus not relaying behavior, when Cédrine wasn't relaying, and Puck Pieterse said, come on, get to the front, start relaying with us. Cédrine did it, and I didn't feel like she should. She's been in the attack the entire time. She's been anticipating all the time. It's understandable if you then don't relay. Just pretend you're cooked. And then she goes to the front, and instead of relaying, she attacks a descent, which makes it even more weird. Unbelievable for the others that you're cooked. So I think that's the one attack where she probably should have just stayed in the wheel and recover and say to Puck, fuck off.
Yeah, but that didn't happen. And in fact, there were no flyers. Demi comes to the front through the last corner. She just goes on the front and I don't know why, but she paces the entire, or leads them out the last 600 meters. I was like, Lecourt's gone to in front of Pieterse. I was like, maybe a mistake, actually. I think it's better to be third in the group of four, and, you know, Pieterse's going to jump, and she will get in front of Vollering. You're not going to get boxed in either, and you can get the slingshot, because they're never going to launch. They're not going to launch at 100 to go, so you're going to have time to make it up and get some draft benefit. Anyway, she jumps just before Pieterse tries to jump around her. She doesn't swing in front of Vollering to cut off the draft. She just sprints on the road marking in a straight line, and she destroys Puck Pieterse in this sprint to win the biggest race of her career after winning a Giro stage last year, to win Liège-Bastogne-Liège ahead of Puck Pieterse. Vollering third, Kobel fourth. Kopecky won the small sprint behind for fifth. There was Royce, Fisher Black, Trinket Colonel, Niewiadoma, Castelline, so two of Phoenix in the top 10. Then with Van der Breggen had led out that group. Ferrand Prévot was ahead of Roy Akers and Nita Meyer in the third group, let's say. So huge win for Kim LeCourt. I haven't had to do it too much recently, so I will pat myself on the back. When I saw her in the small group, I was like, she is going to destroy them. Like, she is legit fast. They haven't got a chance, actually. So that was... but the crazy thing was her making it on Boncel. I've never seen her... That's crazy. Just bridging to that group.
Full teleport. It wasn't just bridging. It was like, snap, and she was there. I was like, I swear I haven't seen you in a while. I'm not sure I had seen her up to that point in the race, like, visibly at all. Like, every now and then, maybe in a sneak peek in a corner of a screen somewhere, but that was a crazy bridge, a crazy teleport. And, like, she's had some solid wins in the past. She won a stage in the Giro Donne last year, and it's now called Giro d'Italia Women, I'm pretty sure. But she won a stage there, so that's pretty high level. Outside of that, not necessarily the victories racking up left and right, but so many close results. Getting a podium at UAE Tour was already amazing with a podium on Jebel Hafid itself. Then getting top 10 at Alfredo Binda, 5th at Milano Sanremo, 5th at Ronde van Vlaanderen, 6th at Flèche Wallonne. It's not like this came out of nowhere. I'd say if you ask the mainstream cycling viewer, who's Kim LeCour-Pinard, they might be like, oh, I've seen that rider maybe once or twice in like a group or something. But at the end of the day, she didn't come out of nowhere. That's the point I want to get across. She's been so incredibly good in the last year and a half. And we got to respect her for a second here. So if anyone watching this knows for sure if she prefers to be called Pinard or LeCour, tell us. Because I've done the research. I'm pretty sure she was Kimberly LeCour, then got married, which she took the name of her husband, I'm pretty sure, which is Pinard. So I don't know whether I should call her Pinard or LeCour at the moment. I don't know. I think that depends on whoever's culture. So I'm just calling her Pinard because that's what her Facebook is called.
Yeah, and it's strange because, PCS, they don't include the maiden name of other riders in brackets, I don't think. I don't know why they do that. And but she wins a huge race. She literally, in 2023, so let's check. In 2023, she was 2 years ago, at this time of the year, literally not a professional cyclist. She was, I think, in Mauritius riding a mountain bike or whatever. And AG Insurance signed her in 2024. I don't know why, whether there's some results I missed.
I think she apparently contacted her according to what she contacted the team according to what I heard on Sporza today.
Because her data was clearly her data was crazy good. Obviously, her data was already crazy good in 2023. There's a lot of women like that already. I'm gonna tell you who, because there's loads of like that. Literally, there can be some random rider riding like national, like local races doing world tour power, and it even happens in men's. To be honest,
I know who. Mrs. Rouge with the Enduran Hill Climb Challenge.
Yeah, exactly. No, she's actually like a dude, or never rides. She's just like 200 watts half now. It's like, what? And then, in 2024, she just started straight away. Straight away, she was good. You know, she's top 10 in Cadell's in her fifth race day. She's 11th in Binder, top 10 in De Panne, which is a hectic Belgian flat classic, and 10th in Roubaix. I know she got the mountain bike, like with Ferrand Prevot, it really helps. But then she's already climbing well in the Giro in Catalunya and the Tour. So, I mean, Benji, the tell was she was 4th in this stage in the Tour de France last year. She won the sprint behind. So,
it's why you picked her.
Wow, what a fast ascent to be maybe top 5, definitely top 10 rider in the world and credits to AG Insurance for taking a chance on her, and they got to be very, very happy with how she's going.
And she's still there for another year, which is also important.
Yeah. I think Phoenix did everything right today with Puck. She just got beaten in the sprint. That is how it is. You worried about Demi, Benji?
I am not worried about Demi. And the reason is that last year at this point in the year, she had 0 victories, and then she destroyed these Spanish 1 week races, which I actually expect her to do once again. So I expect her to destroy those races. And then it depends on the Tour de France Femmes, in my personal opinion, because that's the big race for her. Last year, she lost that because her team sold her out. And this year, I'd say she's again the big favorite, because we've seen a lot of races this year. We haven't seen a lot of mountain stages. And the ones she was a part of, she won the mountain stages. So I'm not worried about Demi Vollering, I'm afraid.
Fair enough. That was women's Liège-Bastogne-Liège. I thought it was pretty exciting. I would, if I could trade 2 hours of the men's coverage to the women's, or maybe swap an hour of the men's to an hour of the women's, that would be good. What do you think about the women's following the men's, Benji? Because they're copying Flanders Classics now.
Well, selfishly, I
prefer it should be on the Saturday.
Yeah. For me, I hate monument days in cycling, and I love them. For the sake of cycling, I love them. But on monument days, I sitting on the couch watching cycling all day, heavy activity, my friend. Sweating all day, struggling almost as much as the riders in the race. Now, on a serious note, I prefer them to be on 2 days, because then I feel like I can give as much attention to each of the 2 races. That's my serious answer.
I agree.
Because that's something I feel like I can't do now, because we missed the first half of the race of the women's because there wasn't any broadcast. But even if there wasn't any broadcast like today, I would have already been more active following the tickets, trying to figure out what happened in the race, stuff like that, which I can't do this time around. And because of that, we now have basically 2 podcasts. One that is 23 minutes about a race that was dog shit, the men's race. And then the women's race that was amazing, but we can't make it more than half an hour either, because we have half of the facts.
Yeah, and I guess for Roubaix, from the organizer's perspective, I think it's easier to shut those roads down for 2 days, because most of them aren't roads, and it might be more difficult to run it on 2 days in Wallonia. I don't know. It is more expensive to run it over 2 days than to run it on the same roads with the same staffing for 1 day. So that's something to bear in mind. And of course, for the riders, for the women, it's better to have it at this time, so you're not waking up at 5 a.m. to have your carb-loaded breakfast 3 hours before an 8 a.m. start to the race. So, which is what used to happen.
By the way, completely off topic. If you want to watch something in the coming evenings, YouTube the Paris-Roubaix 2006 edition of the men's. You spoke about closing roads, Patrick. Imagine a race, a Paris-Roubaix, where over Carrefour, Larbrug, Cancellara attacks. There's still a second group. The second group is basically somewhat out of the race, but you never know. We're still in the last 13 kilometers of Roubaix. They can come back. The railroad closes in front of the second group, and Cancellara rides off to victory in the last 13 kilometers of Roubaix.
Mickey Mouse. Tin Pot.
I watched a summary, so I don't have like every tactical insight in that race because I only watched like the summary of it. But when I saw that railroad close, I was like, match fixing.
Who controls the railroad schedules?
Good question. Yeah. I don't know.
Anyway, we'll be back with our weekly show on Monday or Tuesday. There's also lots to catch up on with the Tour of the Alps. Was a brilliant race this week. Tour of Turkey preview. Romandy. We will not be doing daily recaps, but we will be previewing that race. It begins on Tuesday, and there's a whole lot of other racing coming up. I think Frankfurt next weekend, etc. So I hope you enjoyed the Liège recaps, and we'll see you in the coming days. Till then, ciao ciao.